Welcome back to the Mental Health Matchmaker podcast. I'm your host, Brooke, and today we are doing another Ask a Therapist episode. This is a format where you submit your therapy questions and we bring them to a licensed therapist for honest, grounded answers. Instead of a deep dive conversation, I'll be asking 3 of your questions, and our guest therapist will walk us through each one. Today, I'm joined by registered therapist Omhani, and we're talking about navigating therapy when the mental health system hasn't always felt safe for your community, whether leaning on friends and family still counts as progress if you can't attend therapy regularly, and what it means if CBT just doesn't work for you. Let's get into our first question. Question for you, Omhani. I've been hesitant about therapy because my community has historically been hurt by the mental health system. How can I be sure therapy will actually understand and respect my culture and experiences?
I think that good therapy is culturally informed therapy, and that naturally comes from being a person-centered practitioner. Recognizing the context of psychotherapy is important in that, and recognizing how we might be furthering these, colonial projects, right? We think about psychology as being something that was created by white men for white people. So recognizing that and recognizing how we can kind of challenge those in the therapeutic space, and even being really forthcoming with clients when I'm talking to clients about certain things, will recognize that, hey, I know that the way that this intervention has been framed in the past has been something that could be harmful or maybe not in line with your particular culture, but here's how we can apply it to the concerns that you're bringing in. Always being client-led as well in those areas. Like, there's only so much that we can know as clinicians, like from our own personal experience and from our own education or formal education. The key skill in making therapy accessible for people who are worried about it being harmful for them is to let them lead. I feel like sometimes clients will be worried about being apprehensive about interventions because they feel like they have to do what the therapist says. I think for therapists, the important thing is to recognize that we do hold power, but then also that the client is, in charge of their own life, and then to empower the client to recognize that they are in charge of their own life.
Let's move on to our second question. If you can't attend therapy every week because of the financial side of things, does leaning on friends and family still count as real progress? Here's what Omhani has to say. Ready for the next question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If I can't come to therapy every week because of the financial aspect, is it still okay to lean on friends and family for support? Or does that not count as real progress because it's not professional?
I think it absolutely counts. I actually have had this conversation before with peers about how I don't think that therapy would be as much in demand if we had greater senses of community. Having external supports, informal supports, is a huge facilitator for change and growth. I find that when I have clients who don't have robust systems of support outside of therapy, we end up doing a lot more work in the therapeutic space, which is fine. Like, it's good that they're there and I'm happy to provide that. But it does become a little harder for them to apply the things that we talked about because they don't, have that support outside of our sessions. And so they only see me for an hour a week at best. Every other hour of their life, they're in their community, right? And I'm hoping that that community is supportive and facilitative. And if it isn't, that actually tends to be a detriment to progress. So I completely encourage and even ask clients about their social supports outside of sessions, because it's true, like, therapy is not, super affordable all the time. Like, we do our best to make it accessible. But even when it is, clients aren't coming in every day, right? Mm-hmm. And even if they were, they wouldn't be with us the whole day, right? It would be for a session. And so life continues outside of the therapeutic space. And so it's really important to have social support in that outside world. We heal in community and in connection to others. Like, I don't think that we can progress in isolation. I think there's a limit to that, mm-hmm. right? Like, we all like this idea of, being in control and being able to be independent and do things on our own, and I'm going to go to therapy and I'm going to heal. No man is an island, and so we all require our friendships, our familial bonds, whatever that may be. Like, it doesn't have to be all of those things. You can even have just one person in your life that like really supports you in a way that a therapist just can't, like, given the constraints of therapy.
Now let's get into our final question. Everybody talks about CBT as if it's the gold standard of therapy. But what if you've tried it before and it just doesn't work for you? Here's what Omhani has to say.
All right, Omhani. Everyone talks about CBT, but honestly, I've tried it with a therapist before and I just don't like it. Is therapy still for me if CBT doesn't work? Maybe we can also say what CBT is for the people that don't know.
Yes. Okay, good point. CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's actually a modality that's used very often in therapy. So for clients who have, experience in this space, they'll be very familiar with CBT. Personally, it's not one that I love as a client, but that's not to say that it's not helpful and we should just call it off. Like, it's a very empirically validated modality, which just means that there's lots of research that's backing it. I think for clients who are new to therapy, it can be supportive and it can offer some structure. There are certain circumstances where it may be good, and there are definitely ones where it won't be. The limitation of CBT that I found is that for clients who tend to over-intellectualize, which just means that they think a lot about what they're thinking, CBT tends to make that problem worse, because we're talking about your thoughts, right? And we're trying to get you to be really meta about the way that you think. But if you're already doing a lot of that, and that's like your source of suffering or pain, then we don't want to be doing more of that in the therapeutic space. For those clients and in those cases, I love bringing in like somatic exercises. So deep breathing. I like to incorporate a little bit of movement in session, self-touch and self-holding. Like, I find that can be super revolutionary for clients, especially ones who have kind of been in this space for a really long time and did a lot of talking about their thoughts and like a lot of reflection. It's a really nice change of pace. What drew me to kind of a more somatic base is, one, my own experience of like not loving CBT for myself, but also our minds, our brains, our heads are like one aspect of our human experience. Like, I am the over-intellectualizer, and I've been in therapy and I've sat with a therapist and told them I know what's wrong with me. Like, I could tell you why I think the way that I think, and they'll pull up the cognitive distortions or whatever exercise they have, and I'm like, I know I'm thinking weird. I know this is wrong. I know this is bad, but it doesn't change that I'm like in my head all the time so much. And being in your head more is just not the solution.
If one of these questions resonated with you, you are not alone. And if you have a question you'd like answered in a future episode, check the details in the show notes to submit. See you next time.